Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're looking at something truly fascinating and honestly a little unexpected. We're going to unpack how a seemingly everyday item, literally a children's coloring book, is acting as a catalyst for a massive geopolitical and spiritual movement. Now, I know that sounds almost counterintuitive, right? A coloring book? But as we peel back the layers of our source material today, you'll see exactly how a grassroots tool designed for a family living room is connecting directly to global conversations about democracy, free speech, and national revival.
So the source material we're looking at is a book called Faith and Freedom by Dr. Antonio Arnold. And what's incredibly striking right off the bat is the deliberate contrast at play. On the surface, you've got this very basic medium, simple black and white line art, meant for crayons and colored pencils. But when you look at what's actually being depicted, the imagery carries some heavy, mature themes. We're seeing young people holding signs for Jesus, faith, and freedom right against the backdrop of the American flag. The book is taking this highly accessible, kid-friendly format and using it to tackle really complex concepts, things like national revival, constitutional values, and political history. It's taking these massive macro ideas and making them micro, putting them quite literally into the hands of children.
To really understand this, we need to look at it through the eyes of the author. Dr. Arnold frames this entire project with a very specific, objective goal in mind. He writes that this book was created to, and I quote, "inspire a generation to rise with boldness, truth, and faith." You see, he's speaking directly to young people who are searching for purpose in what is undeniably an uncertain modern world. He basically wants to provide a roadmap for believers who feel a calling to speak out, using this creative medium as a launchpad for much deeper spiritual engagement. All right, here is our quick agenda for this explainer. 1. A veteran pastor's vision. 2. Art as spiritual discipleship. 3. Family as the foundation. 4. Charlie Kirk's catalyst. And 5. A global conservative awakening. Let's kick things off with Section 1, a veteran pastor's vision. The source introduces us to Dr. Arnold through a very specific dual lens. He is both a proud veteran of the United States Armed Forces and a devoted pastor. And honestly, this is absolutely essential to understanding the book's DNA. The text details how Dr. Arnold bridges his strict military discipline with his deep pastoral focus on the family. He directly connects his personal military service to his commitment to building a spiritual legacy. Underneath it all, he has this profound desire to see America return to what he describes as its biblical foundations, a nation deeply rooted in righteousness and a reverence for scriptural truth.
So the crucial point here is how that unique background completely shapes his worldview. For Dr. Arnold, faith absolutely requires action. The book outlines a very clear call to action. It promotes salvation, advocates for national righteousness, and heavily encourages youth to find their unique purpose through creative faith. The text frames his project as a conscious choice of courage over comfort. He's fully aware that some people might disagree with his conservative stance, but he feels a profound spiritual duty to mentor the next generation and champion these values no matter what.
Moving right along to Section 2, Art as Spiritual Discipleship. Now, a massive emphasis in the source material is placed on intentional parenting and particularly the vital role of the mother. Take a look at this quote included in the text, which is attributed to the conservative figure Charlie Kirk. It states that motherhood is the highest calling, entirely surpassing any amount of corporate success. The book uses this idea to really highlight the unique, powerful spiritual influence a mother has on her kids. It offers actionable advice for mothers trying to balance household leadership with their spiritual calling, framing a Christ-centered home as a necessary shield against modern cultural pressures. So, the book visualizes the mother as the primary guide for a child's faith. And the tool for this guidance? It's art. The simple, quiet act of sitting down to color translates these foundational values into an artistic family activity. It's all about using the coloring book as a primary tool for teaching young children about biblical heroism, effectively creating a sanctuary of biblical truth right there within the home. The idea is that visual art connects children to complex truths in a way that actually sticks, helping kids internalize personal purpose and biblical teachings while they're just having fun playing. The source actually breaks down practical steps for parents to utilize these artistic projects as daily discipleship lessons. First, it suggests turning the simple act of coloring into active discipleship. Second, parents can use the imagery of these historical and spiritual figures to spark deep, meaningful spiritual conversations, basically breaking down and simplifying complex theology into easily digestible concepts for kids. And finally, the book encourages using the art to help kids memorize scripture interactively. This kind of intentional artistic play is framed as the key to making scripture study memorable for young families and building a really strong, lasting spiritual foundation. Which brings us to Section 3, Family as the Foundation.
Now, the book doesn't shy away from political philosophy. Instead, it completely intertwines it with faith. Here we see a neutral contrast of the ideological lessons presented in the source. On one side, it outlines the power of government, which it associates with control over property and individual limits. On the flip side is the power of the individual, which is grounded in the belief of securing personal freedom, relying on family, serving God, and loving your country. The source frames this as a perfect alignment of historic American liberty with eternal biblical teachings, placing a huge emphasis on individual responsibility.
Let's shift gears a bit and move to Section 4, Charlie Kirk's Catalyst.
The book dedicates a significant amount of focus to the life and legacy of Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA. The source outlines his history of establishing this organization to promote free markets, limited government, and constitutional values, primarily on high school and college campuses. But crucially for this specific narrative, it notes that Kirk also launched affiliate groups designed specifically to mobilize churches and religious communities around these conservative causes. He was really bridging the gap between faith and political action.
A central tenet of Kirk's teachings that the book really highlights is the idea that education should focus on teaching students how to think, not what to think. Dr. Arnold uses this core concept to offer some very specific advice to youth. He wants to equip them to courageously share their values and defend traditional freedoms in modern classrooms. It's all about empowering young people to step up and become leaders in their own communities through their creative faith and informed convictions.
To give you a sense of the scale of this movement, the source provides a pretty striking data point: 37,000. Following the tragic passing of Charlie Kirk, which the source notes occurred during an event at a university, there was a massive, immediate surge of interest. Turning Point USA received over 37,000 inquiries in the days following from people eager to start new chapters or get involved. That number's huge. It signifies a rapid mobilization of the exact base that Dr. Arnold is writing for.
And finally, we arrive at Section 5, A Global Conservative Awakening.
The source outlines a remarkably swift and highly interconnected global response to these events. In Italy, Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni called the event a deep wound for democracy. Leaders in Hungary and France framed his death as symbolic of much broader ideological battles against progressive intolerance. Meanwhile, tensions really flared when the European Parliament denied a moment of silence. And over in Australia, commentators and athletes alike began rapidly re-evaluating the boundaries of free speech. The message that originated in the States was having immediate, undeniable international reverberations.
According to the text, Kirk's legacy galvanized right-leaning groups far beyond the U.S., across South Africa, South America, and Israel. He became viewed internationally as a potent symbol of resistance against censorship, and we're seeing international leaders increasingly rallying around this message. They are viewing the defense of religious freedom and free speech as absolutely vital pillars for preserving democracy globally. It perfectly illustrates a growing worldwide spiritual and conservative awakening that the source links directly back to those foundational family values we discussed earlier. Bringing the narrative full circle, we return to Dr. Arnold's final thoughts. After tracing this incredible line from a child simply coloring a page, all the way to global leaders debating the future of democracy, he offers this concluding call to action. We are not silenced, we are not alone, and we are not finished. He views this whole movement not just as honoring a memory, but as a strict mandate to pair grassroots faith with daily, unapologetic action. It's a powerful call for the individual, family unit to see themselves as an active part of a much larger, global spiritual legacy.
Which leaves us with this final thought to ponder today. As we've seen, the tools that shape global movements aren't always found in grand debate halls or sweeping legislation. Sometimes they are found right in a box of crayons on a kitchen table. So, how are cultural and political movements increasingly utilizing grassroots, simple family-centered media to build these lasting global legacies? It's a fascinating intersection of everyday family discipleship and profound worldwide impact. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I'll see you next time.